Politicians and celebrities make deals behind closed doors, promises broken, and their income soars. Hidden agendas run the grand parade. In the circus, choose a masquerade. Believe me, I wouldn't lie. I've been given money, power, and fame to keep you in line.
Welcome everyone to the show, and today I have Fatima here, and we're going to talk about health and lifestyle changes you can make today. So before we begin, could you tell us a little bit about your background and what brought you to become a low tox lifestyle coach?
Yeah, so my name is Fatima. I'm a mom of four. I became a low tox lifestyle mentor because I was able to get off my medications, Zoloft, Ativan, Xanax, and Restoril in 2010 when I cleaned up my lifestyle. And so I saw the power of lowering your toxic load, how it can really affect our health. And so 2018, I decided to go on the path to become a certified health coach. And then in 2022, I decided to add on integrative health practitioner because I wanted to offer functional lab tests so that we get to the root cause of why humans are struggling with their health.
Why do you think that lifestyle changes are often some of the hardest, but the most important changes that we need to make for our health?
To me, it's the hardest because we're creatures of habit. So it's kind of hard for us to make habitual changes, even though they should be the foundations of our health. And that's where I also see a lot of resistance from my clients. Like when you tell them, oh, get to bed by 9 o'clock. But they're like, no, I like watching my shows and whatnot. So that's and then it's also not sexy. Like a lot of people just want to jump in a parasite cleanse or whatever other cleanse that's trending without setting the foundations, which is really what they need.
Yeah, I mean, it is difficult because I fall into that myself. I want to go to bed early. I want to do all the things, but then the whole day you're busy. That's your only time to do what you want to do. So it's hard to balance everything.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So other than the fact that we don't go to sleep when we should, what are some other reasons why you think people feel more tired nowadays?
People are more tired nowadays because we live in a very toxic environment. We might not realize it, but we're bombarded by toxins every single day from our bath and body products, cleaners, our tap water, our air. And so that causes mineral depletion. And once our minerals are depleted, our cells gets hangry. And minerals are the spark plugs of life. They're the fuels for the cells to create energy. And it's always so energy is always the first thing that we notice. Like once you're depleted, you're so toxic, you're gonna start feeling tired, more tired, and then you're also having a hard time going to sleep. It's a pretty bad cycle.
So, what are some reasons that we're really depleted in minerals? Because they always say that, fruits and vegetables have all the minerals you need, and you don't need to, supplement. That's a scam and all that stuff. So, what do you think?
Right. So our soils are very depleted now. Back in the day, it was so full of minerals. And now with the factory farming and industrial farming, our soils are dead and depleted, and it's toxic, full of the chemicals, especially with heavy usage of pesticides and fertilizers. So our fruits and vegetables doesn't have the amount of minerals it used to have. And that's why, supplementing can be helpful in this case, especially if the person is already very depleted. Just eating fruits and vegetables in a well balanced diet really won't help rebalance or replenish those lost minerals, unfortunately.
And what are some symptoms that people usually experience when they're having mineral imbalances?
So first is definitely fatigue. And then that kind of is like a domino effect, right? So you're going to get insomnia, anxiety, skin issues, gut issues. A lot of mental health issues are usually from mineral depletion and heavy metal toxicity. And pretty much to me, 90% of all the symptoms that we experience can be, it starts with the mineral imbalance. So, because it's needed for all the enzyme functions we have in our body. Like we need calcium to keep the integrity of our gut lining. So if it's imbalanced and then you have the heavy metals in there, then that causes leaky gut.
So, you mentioned heavy metals. How does the body get these heavy metals?
Once you start getting depleted, so like I said before, I'm gonna backtrack, right? We live in a toxic world. So every time we get exposed to toxins, once our minerals are already depleted, our body uptakes the heavy metals easier because the cells doesn't have the energy to push out the heavy metals and other toxins. And the heavy metals are uptaken by our body because they're a replacement part for an essential mineral. If you think about a parking lot, it's a reserved parking lot for essential minerals. And if all of a sudden calcium is depleted and there's no car there, and here comes lead, which has an affinity for spots where calcium needs to go, the lead will take over. And the lead is there. It will essentially still help your body function, just not at 100%. So it's a poor replacement part. It's still
Mm,
keeping us though.
yeah. So, is there a connection between being low on minerals or having a mineral imbalance and low libido and low energy levels?
Yes, for sure. Because we need the minerals to create energy in the mitochondria. And if you notice, the more low energy you are, you really have no zest for life, right? And so once our cells are out of balance, our hormones will be out of balance. And then with all the toxins, our adrenals will be on overdrive. Then it tells the thyroid that we're stuck in fight or flight. And then the thyroid will lower the volume and producing energy and the other things that we don't really need immediately to survive, which includes digestion. And that's why we see a lot of weight gain and the reproduction, because a body that doesn't feel safe will not be health, will not carry a baby. So when it dials down reproduction, then that means our sex hormones are also going to be off. So your libido will also tank. Plus, energy, who really has who has the mood to do anything, right?
Yes. So, you mentioned that like when you have these imbalances, you can also get weight gain because I keep hearing conflicting things. Like some people are like, it's only calories in, calories out. But then I know women who are like stressed, probably getting not the right amount of minerals or not in the right balance, and they're gaining weight. They're hardly eating. And then you try to tell this to people, especially men, because I think like it's a little different for them. And they're just like, no, they're just lying. They're eating on the side. You just don't know it.
Right? Yeah, that is totally true. Back in the day, before when our world was not toxic, it was as easy as calories in, calories out, and moving extra to, lose the weight. But now, with all the toxins, it's harder and harder for us to lose the weight. And it really affects women more because we just have a different hormone cycle compared to men. Like the men's hormone cycle is 24 hours, literally. Ours is what, like however long our cycle is, right? Sometimes it's 26 days. Some people will have it for 31 days. It really depends. So these toxins, when they get absorbed in our bodies, and if our liver is overloaded, what it does is to avoid us from getting poisoned, it will push the toxins into fat. That's the safest storage place for it. And then, the more they store, then the more we hold on to fat. So it's not really just as easy as starving yourself and exercising more. Plus, like you mentioned, with the stress, when you starve yourself, you're giving your body the signal that it's stressed, there's famine, then the thyroid will slow down, and that's, it's a really bad cycle. The way, if you starve yourself thinking you're going to lose weight, but really in reality you aren't going to lose weight because you're telling your body that there's a famine.
Hmm.
But you'll
Yeah.
hold on to your fat because it just wants to survive.
Exactly. And it's holding on to the toxins too. So like if you maybe were in extended famine or whatever, you'd be releasing those toxins and you'd feel so sick
Yeah.
all at once. And it's not going to be like you're going to be, and it's really hard to explain this to people because they're just like, no, this is how it's always been. We're not in a toxic soup. I grew up eating this food, whatever. You know how like they're just
Yes.
very, they want it to be very simple and clear cut. If I just stop eating, I'm gonna lose weight. That's how it is. Has nothing to
Yeah.
do with the outside world.
I know. It's this is definitely a harder message for most people to receive because a lot are, they're close-minded, or they're just really like, no, toxins are not affecting me. And like you mentioned, like I ate this growing up and I'm fine. Just like even with products, I've used that my whole life and I'm fine. But then really they're not fine because they're suffering from eczema, from constipation, like all these things. But it's become their normal that they feel like it's fine, unfortunately.
Yes. So why might just going to your doctor and saying check my hormones, why is that usually not enough for a lot of our health issues?
So, and a lot of times they'll use blood tests, right? That's their gold standard at conventional medicine doctors. And the problem with blood work is it only sees what's floating in your body at the moment of collection. And the reference ranges is based off of the general population, which is not healthy themselves. And so if you're not super sick yet, like you're still just starting to feel your symptoms, you get a blood test to check for your like how's your thyroid doing. You'll usually fall in within the normal range, and then you still feel like crap. And the problem is with most doctors is they're trained to treat and diagnose. So if they can't diagnose you because you're within the normal range, then they're just going to send you home telling you you're fine, telling you to eat less, exercise more, go on vacation. Or sometimes, if you really insist that you need help, they'll they'll give you a prescription for birth control and or antidepressants.
Exactly. And birth control also depletes minerals and nutrients in the body. So then
Yeah,
you're going to be worse off.
yeah, and it
So,
gives you a fake period too, so it's not really
yes,
balancing your
a
hormones.
fake period. And periods are supposed to be like a natural detox time for us.
Yeah.
And when it's a fake one, we're kind of like missing out on a lot of that. So, why should we forget about the hormones and just focus on rebalancing the minerals first?
Yes. The reason why, so before I always thought that, okay, we'll do the gut and then we'll do your hormones, like all these things. But once I learned about the magical world of minerals and how they run everything, now I know that it should be the first step of anyone's health journey, because you can fix your gut all you want. But if your minerals are out of balance still, eventually your gut problems would come back. Even with parasites. With parasites, um, they'll keep doing parasite cleanses, and they keep wondering why it keeps coming back, because the cells doesn't have the energy to deal with the parasites and to keep them in check.
And what are some ways that we can check for mineral imbalances? What methods?
So the best thing to do is a hair tissue mineral analysis. We're using the hair as your biopsy sample, and this one is giving us a window to 3 months prior, because our hair grows 1 centimeter every month. So it's the best way to measure minerals and heavy metals. Even the EPA uses heavy metals to test for heavy metals. It's going back to the blood, right? If you test for heavy metals in your blood, initially, if you had an acute exposure, they'll immediately see the lead, let's say lead, you get exposed to lead. they'll see it in your blood, but 30 to 40 later when they retest, the lead will not be there, and then they'll say you're fine. But really, the lead didn't just disappear, right? Your blood, because it strives to stay in perfect balance, pushes out the heavy metals into your tissues, your organs, and your bones to keep your blood at homeostasis to keep you alive. That is the main objective of our body, is to keep us alive. So it doesn't matter, it doesn't care if the tissues and your organs are getting, bombarded with toxins and whatever. It wants to keep you alive today. Like, long term, it's like we'll deal with that later, basically.
Yeah, I mean, that's so true. It's going to prioritize keeping you alive, and it just stores everything for later. So, okay, let's say we want to do the heavy metal detox. Can we do it on our own, or do we need to work with someone?
It is best to work with someone, and mineral balancing is really the safest and gentlest detox you can do. It will eventually get rid of the heavy metals. It will get rid of the parasites, any overgrowth of bacteria and candida in your body. We don't want to do just, like a heavy metal detox, which is kind of like chelating, because it doesn't discriminate between your essential minerals and the heavy metals. So when it's pulling out the heavy metals, it's also pulling out essential minerals. And so we're just causing more imbalance in the body. And like I mentioned earlier, heavy metals are also a replacement part. So they're getting used in specific functions of your body. And if you're just pulling out the heavy metals without the proper mineral replacement, then that function will not work. And then you'll have more problems down the road.
And if someone is like, maybe they're not ready to test right now, but they want to do some lifestyle changes, what can they implement?
You can start adding in 7 to 9 cups of vegetables a day. It has to be cooked. Our bodies have a hard time digesting raw vegetables. I know there's a raw food movement, and a lot of them also say that they're feeling good on it. To me, anything that's extreme kinds of diets, we always feel good initially because we're removing all the ultra processed foods. I myself went vegan for a while when I cleaned up my lifestyle, and I felt so good. But I was now realizing, like, okay, because I took out all the processed foods. And when I got pregnant the first time, the first thing I craved was meat, and so I listened to my body, like, yeah, we do, it's about a balance, right? Just eat real food. And then drinking clean water, making sure that if they're on city water, tap water, they should have their water tested, or they can check tapwaterscore.com, I think is the website. So you can see what contaminants are in your water, and then you can get a proper filter for that. Because really, no matter how clean we eat and how high quality the supplements we take, if you're drinking tap water or, dead water, we're still kind of fighting an uphill battle. And then don't be afraid of the sun. Sunlight is such a healing thing. It balances our hormones. It helps regulate your cortisol, our circadian rhythm, and that also just sets your body up, for the healing that you need. Especially, almost everyone nowadays are stuck in fight or flight, and so they think that they have high cortisol. Such a thing right now, right? But I'm sure you've seen it all about cortisol, but really, yes, high cortisol is a problem, but we don't want high cortisol or low cortisol. We want it to be regulated, because the cortisol goes on a curve. So there's certain times of the day that, yeah, we need to have higher cortisol. And then there's times of the day, especially around bedtime, that we need that cortisol to go down. Now, if we're not using light properly, sunlight, not the artificial lights that we get nowadays with LED, if we're using that properly, it really helps our body heal. It's not overnight though. It takes a while. You just have to be consistent with it, and eventually you'll see improvements in your cortisol and your circadian rhythm. just even by using light.
Yeah, I remember when I first started learning about that stuff, I changed all my screens to turn red at like sunset. Everything turns like a tint of red. My phone
Yeah.
turns into everything. And all my friends are like, "How do you see this?" Because they need like the bright, blue light because they're so used to that. And I'm like, "How are you guys sleeping?" And of course,
Right?
there's always a problem.
Yeah, yeah. People don't realize that artificial blue light really makes your brain think that it's still daytime. And so people complaining, "Oh, I can't sleep." It's like, "Well, you're watching TV while you're laying in bed to go to sleep. Of course you're not going to have good sleep."
Exactly. And also for me, I found out like I had someone who came on the podcast maybe like a year or two ago, and she just spent the whole time talking about all the things that magnesium does. So then I started taking like very high amounts to me, in my opinion, it was high amounts of
Yeah,
magnesium and so chill, no stress, sleep very easy, no more period cramps, no more,
yeah.
like pains and stuff like that, like shoulder pains, muscle pains, all that
Right.
stuff. It's like it was a mineral deficiency the
Yeah.
whole time.
So almost everyone is deficient of magnesium. Like that's one of the minerals that's really like most people are deficient in. And because it when we are so stressed, that's like it gets burned through. Well, it burns through all our minerals, but because our foods are depleted, not a lot of people really eat vegetables as much anymore, right? So a lot of us are very depleted in magnesium. So definitely magnesium helps in a lot of symptoms, but definitely too balance is key.
Yeah. Yeah, also, like, I remember I had taken a specific type of birth control or something like that, and it, gives you, like, potassium imbalances. So then
Yeah.
afterwards, I was still, like, low in potassium or, like, too high, I don't remember. So then I had to do stuff to counteract that for years afterwards. It's, like,
Oh yeah.
crazy. And most people,
Yeah,
they
doctor
never test and they never figure this out, and they just
yeah.
think that this is normal after a couple years.
Yeah, they just think that they're getting old usually. It's that what they correlate it to, like when they start feeling the joint pain and the fatigue and not able to sleep and all this stuff.
Yeah, a big one is everybody's like, "Oh, it's perimenopause," and I'm like, "Is it?" Yeah, because like
Right?
because I'm like really old and I'm like, "I don't have that and I don't have that, but I do test these things.
Yeah.
Maybe."
And you know what's so
Mhm.
funny? Because so Dr. Wilson is one of the not pioneers of mineral balancing, but he uses mineral balancing. He's been using it for so many years, and he worked with Dr. Eck, who is the pioneer of mineral balancing. And he said that he works with women in menopause, and there's been cases with him that these women reverse their menopause and then they get their periods back and they lose their hot flashes. Like it's really, if you think about it, when your minerals are replenished, then your hormones are working in harmony. So everything, works functioning. So really, our age is just a number, right? It just how your organs are working kind of dictates your age, right? Now they have that biological age test to tell
Mhm.
you what your biological age is based on all your markers.
Exactly, and I have this problem with telling my friends. I'm like, "Look, I'm testing my hormones. I have the same hormones as someone who's healthy in their 20s. I'm an old lady. And that's because I do all the things that keep everything in check. I do like full tests on everything. I've done the hair test like a bunch of times every couple months. I'll just throw that in there. But like you just want to be on top of these things because if it goes away from you, it's a lot harder and takes a lot longer to bring yourself back. So why can't we just take a bunch of supplements and minerals and stuff like that and then just be done with it?
Because we don't want to cause an imbalance in our mineral system. Our mineral system is very delicate and very complicated. If you can Google a mineral wheel and you'll see like all these lines. It's like what? And so minerals and vitamins and even our hormones have specific relationships with each other. One can make another go up, or it can deplete it when you have one too high. So it's really a science and an art. So we just don't want to throw in a bunch of random supplements and like expect it to make us to magically erase all our symptoms. Plus, a lot of the multivitamins, because we not a lot there's not really a lot of multi minerals, right? It's not really talked about. So multivitamins and then the RDA they put on there is literally the minimum to keep you alive. It's not for optimal health. So if your goal is optimal health, you really should be taking targeted supplements so that you're not causing further imbalance, and you're not just putting in random things. A lot of the multivitamins that you can easily access are full of additives and ingredients that you don't want inside your body anyways. And yeah, it's not an easy science. We can't just throw stuff inside our bodies and expect it to magically work.
Exactly. I have a lot of people that they go, well, I'm taking a really high quality multivitamin. I'm good. I don't need to test this. So
Yeah.
there you go. So that's not enough. All right. So you recommend, to help get some minerals, you recommend starting with things like soups a lot, because then you can like put a lot of vegetables in. It's hot, so it's broken down, like soups and maybe sauces and stuff like that with vegetables. That's like a great
Yeah.
starting point.
Yes. And also, even like just steaming it, like you can steam a whole bunch in the morning and then just have it, you can eat it throughout the day. That's also a great way, especially for busy people, for you to get your vegetable intake. I know. And then also make sure that you're not eating on the run, because that's also one of the problems too, is we might be eating really great food, taking high quality supplements, but then the problem is we're not digesting them and absorbing them because we're eating on the run, or we have low stomach acid and all these things. So there's so many things that comes into play when it comes to working on our health. It's really no shortcut. It's a marathon.
Yeah, I've seen like there's a lot of people, like we've kind of forgotten how we're supposed to eat, because like one thing that I see a lot of people do wrong is they'll have a lot of cold water before they eat, and then
Yeah,
they won't have enough stomach acid to like break down everything properly, and then a couple hours later they have reflux and they're like, "Oh, I just have reflux. I'm getting old."
right? Or they think that reflux is they have such high stomach acid when it's actually the opposite.
Yeah.
Then they'll take an antacid, which makes things worse. Like,
Yeah,
no.
exactly. And then you go to a regular doctor and they just put a band-aid on it, give you something, and those side effects, for if you tell them you have reflux, those medications are insane. You should
Right?
never touch them with a 10-foot pole. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so like
And
that's why it's so important to find someone like you that goes through the labs and like helps you that way.
yeah, we need to test instead of guessing, for sure.
And why do you feel like regular doctors, they don't do this type of testing?
Because they're in bed with big pharma. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but they're in bed with big pharma, and so, their pockets are heavily lined by the pharmaceutical industry. So if they can't, that's why they just want to put a band-aid on it. Like they really, even insurance companies will not cover alternative doctors or functional lab tests, because really, if you think about it, they don't want you to be well. They want lifetime customers. They're giving you band-aids to keep you alive, enough to do your part in society, but sick yet alive, alive yet sick. Is that the right
Yeah.
term?
Yeah, the big money maker is maintenance medication. So if they can get you on something
Yes,
for the rest of your life, that's big money.
exactly. They say that a cured patient is lost profit, right? So,
Mhm.
and I know a lot of people, we're so how do you say it? I can't. think of the term. Like they tell us that okay, you need health insurance, and a lot of people rely on health insurance, which is fine, but then they find out that it's not doesn't cover preventative medicine. They're not, it's really they should call it sick insurance. And I get it, it's good to have like if you have accidents and stuff, but if it's just for maintaining your health, they'll usually not even cover that. They don't like you seeking out alternative ways to keep you healthy because they want to keep you sick.
Exactly. And like once I realized that, I said, okay, I don't want health insurance. I want catastrophic. If I'm in an accident or something like that, then fine, it covers that. But like for the day-to-day daily doctor visits, I call them, what's your, out of pocket rate, whatever. And it's always cheap. And if you add up all of them, it's not even a fraction of what the insurance would have been. It's ridiculously expensive to get insurance for nothing. And you can
Yeah.
find people like you and other people who do this type of stuff online, and they'll help you pick the tests and, tell you what you need to do. And you can have like 2 or 3 of them and make your own team. And
Yeah,
it's going to be
exactly.
so much better for people once you just leave that system.
Yeah. Plus, there's health shares now too, where it's kind of like health insurance, but not really. I don't know if you've heard of health shares. And talking about insurance, before I looked it up because here in California you're required to have it, and or they like tax you. I don't have health insurance, but I was looking at it before. And I'm like, I won't even reach that. I won't even how do you say it? I
The
can't even reach
deductible.
that deductible. It's
Yeah.
like $10,000. I'm like, I don't go to a doctor every single month. How can I get to $10,000 before you start paying for procedures? Like, that's insane. And then I'm paying $500, $600 per month, and I'm not using it. Like the doctor, if I go to an insurer path, they're not going to cover it. So I'm like, that's just kind of a waste of money. You're better off saving money, like putting money on the side for emergency purposes, or look into health shares if you really feel like you kind of need to have that insurance. Because a lot of health shares, their deductible is like $1,000, $2,000, and after that, they'll pay for everything. And that's easier on your pocket, and they cover alternative, practitioners and alternative therapies, not just it has to be doctor in network specialist after specialist. Like that's also the problem with Western medicine is they
Specialists.
compartmentalize your
Mhm.
body, and then even these people don't talk to each other, right? And it's like now you're more lost. We have to treat our body as a whole system because it is. If there's an imbalance in one part, there for sure is an imbalance in other parts. It's not just one thing.
Exactly. And people don't understand, like if you take this maintenance medication, it's going to deplete other things, cause imbalances all throughout your body. And then that joint pain or that back pain or that migraine or whatever is probably because of that. But we like to think of it, oh, I just go to the foot doctor, and I go to the this doctor and that doctor, and they don't talk, and it's just a complete mess, and it's definitely on purpose.
Yeah, for sure. Because they don't want you well. It's the sick part of it.
So as someone who does what you do, how has it transformed how you deal with your family when they get sick?
So I feel very lucky and grateful that I've been low tox since 2010, way before I had kids. So naturally, my kids have been raised, naturally. We usually use herbs in times of sickness. I'm not scared of fevers because I know that it's killing. It's doing your body's doing its job, right? If you're trying to suppress the fever, then your body can't kill off whatever it was trying to kill off in the first place. So they've been, pretty lucky on that end, and they're very healthy. They don't really get sick a lot. If we do get sick, it was like we got sick one time when we got exposed to mold. Like it's those kinds of things, right? It's not like, oh, we went to a public place and then we got sick, or we've knock on wood, we've never had the experience where I see some moms, they share, we get sick, we get better, we get sick again. kind of like a constant cycle of just being sick. And it feels terrible because we're meant to live our life full of health, but a lot of, like you mentioned, we've forgotten the old ways. We're so disconnected from nature that we've forgotten how intelligent our bodies is, how nature can heal, and all these things. Except you know, my kids like candy. Well, my second one. So I'm always my stress levels around Halloween. It's always kind of, elevated a little bit, but it's like 80/20. You can't live a perfect 100% toxic free life unless you live in a bubble. So it's like something that you kind of just have to, it's about balance. We can't control everything. And if you try to control everything, then just so you know, stress is also a very it's a toxin, and probably sometimes the stress will kill us faster than the toxins that we get exposed to.
Exactly. And I feel you with the kids and the candy and the bad food. Halloween was like the bane of my existence. But as
Yeah.
they get older, I gave them like the little apps where they scan all the products in the grocery store. It's like, oh, you want that? Scan it, see what it says. And then like that and the skincare products, of course. And
Yeah.
they'll just be
Yeah.
like, this one will cause cancer. This one will cause
Yeah.
ADHD. And they start screaming out. And then like the people who are shopping, they're like putting stuff down. They're like, what it will? And they're putting it down. Everybody's getting
Right.
scared. And then they'll be like, nothing in this aisle.
Yeah. And yeah, so my kids are pretty good with that. Like, with all when we go to the grocery store, they're always like, hey, mom, check this for me, blah, blah, blah. But it's the Halloween candy that before, when they were younger, I was able to not let them, like get exposed to trick or treating. And then they made friends, and their friends are like trick or treating, and they're like, we want to go with them. I tried to exchange their candies. But my second one is I'm not gonna say the worst one, but my second one, let's just say she has a really, really bad sweet tooth. And she when you try to negotiate with her, there's no negotiating with her, actually. My husband's like, "You're just gonna listen to her cry for 5 hours?" I'm like, "I guess, but I'm taking away her candy."
Yeah, like one thing is whenever like I'm like, okay, you're gonna have this, but then you're gonna have a meltdown in a couple hours. No, I won't. No, I won't. Okay, have it. And then I'm like, then they're screaming and crying. This is your meltdown. It's like, no, it's not true. And it's like, okay, want to try it again next week? Same thing. And then
Right.
eventually they're like, okay, I do get a meltdown. And then now when their friends are acting crazy, it's like, did you have sugar?
Yeah. Did you have red dye 40?
Exactly. So it's gonna be crazy. I think they're gonna be good because like I see them talking to each other, and some of the crunchy moms are like, infiltrating with their kids, and their kids are, going, oh, don't eat that, and then it's not as cool anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
So you do homeschooling?
Sorry, say that again?
Oh, do you do homeschooling?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So what are
Yeah.
some of the things that you do concerning like health education when you're homeschooling?
I haven't really incorporated that into our curriculum, but I do always talk to them about ingredients. So my oldest one right now, his auntie, his great aunt, always loves telling me the story. I think he was 3 or 4. We ate at a restaurant, and he looked at the ketchup bottle, and he told his great aunt, "I can't have this because it has high fructose corn syrup." So I was really proud of that. And they listen. It's funny how kids are, right? It seems like they're not listening to you. And so I would tell random facts to my husband, and when we go to the grocery store, all of a sudden my kid will just say, "Oh, dad, we can't buy that brand because it got bought out." I'm like, "Oh, he listens." So, and my husband and I, we don't welcome anything that has, ingredients that's a no-no, except for the Halloween candies that they get from trick or treating. Um, but yeah, even my 5-year-old now, he's always asking me to check the ingredients when we're grocery shopping, and they're, you know, it's usually just with the food because obviously with like the bath and body products, they just use what I buy. But yeah, I they know that we don't prefer or we don't love, like the artificial colorings and artificial dyes. So it's really just the Halloween candy that we're working on. But aside from that, they're pretty good with knowing what's allowed inside the house and what they're allowed to have. When they go to a friend's house, they'll know what they can or cannot eat. So that's, kind of gives me peace of mind that at least they have that knowledge of what to avoid, even though I'm not like looking over their shoulder all the time.
Exactly. So I think it's getting better for all of us as everybody's learning more. Like before podcasts became popular, it was way harder. Now people are starting to listen to them. I remember listening to podcasts in the car, like on health and stuff like that. And my kid, when she was very, very young, she would be like, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to brainwash me. I'm still gonna eat chocolate or like candy or whatever. And I'm like, okay, okay. But after a couple years, it started going in, like it or not.
Yeah. Yeah, and really everything starts at home, right? We're their first teachers. Even so, I took my health coach certification through Dr. Sears Institute, Wellness Institute, and I love it's kind of harsh, but I love how he says it. Like he calls out parents when parents say like, "Oh, that's all she eats" or whatnot, like the junk food or whatever, and then he would just say, "Don't be a parental wimp." Because basically, we're the ones paying for the groceries, right? We have control over what comes into our home. So if you're finding that your kid only wants to drink juice boxes instead of water, then stop buying the juice box, right? Like it's very simple. Because eventually, when it's not available, then they'll accept what's available. That's actually how I quit soda. I was very addicted to soda back in the day, and in 2007 I just out of nowhere was like, I'm going to stop drinking soda. So I stopped buying it at the grocery store. So if it's not easily accessible, then you're eventually gonna not want it because it's not there. And that's how you retrain your brain, right? Like, oh, it's not there, I guess we're not going to look for it anymore. Sometimes it's as simple as that.
Yeah,
I know it's
I
hard to.
definitely see that. For me, when I was younger, we didn't know about this stuff as much. So like it was kind
Yeah.
of a free for all. The parents were all working. So the kids were just given cereal, like the Lucky
Yep.
Charms or the Frosted Flakes or whatever that garbage was. And then, like some TV dinners that were just all processed with chemical preservatives, all this garbage in it. And like that was pretty much how we lived. And then we're
Yeah.
wondering why we are one of like the sickest generations outside of the younger ones. But like we were
Yeah.
in a toxic soup. We were not getting our vitamins and minerals for sure. I'm pretty sure Lucky Charms is not packed with vitamins and minerals. Some of us were having it 3 times a day because I know. So it's just like, and whatever like kids can cook on their own when their parents are working, it's part of like the problem because it was just so messed up back in the day.
Yeah. Hey, when we know better, we do better, right? So
Exactly.
it's like there's no point on like um beating yourself up if you did make bad decisions back in the day. And now if you start learning new things and you can start changing and give yourself grace. I wasn't a holistic child at all. So, you know, like it takes years of learning and retraining your brain that certain things are not healthy for you, and then you can make changes.
Exactly. So, where do you see the future of health and wellness heading towards, especially in regards to mineral balancing and like the monocropping and all the messed up parts with it?
I'm very hopeful because I'm seeing more and more alternative health practitioners that are seeing the value of hair tissue mineral analysis and mineral balancing. So I think there's going to be more people offering that, which is great because then we're not just like chasing symptoms and doing protocols after protocols. And then I think, well, with all this information that we have access to nowadays, I think that health and wellness is gonna have not a breakthrough because more and more people are really opening their eyes to all the toxins. And it's just also a great thing to do is remind yourself not to be super anxious about all the things that you're learning because now, right, a lot of people are saying, "Oh, I have health anxiety over switching to a crunchy lifestyle or a low tox lifestyle," because there's so much information and we're not really meant to get all this information at a at the tip of our fingertips, at the tip of our hands, at our fingertips this quickly, right? And there's so much conflicting information. The internet is noisy. So I think it's also about having that um you have to almost also research for yourself on what you should follow and if it works for your family. But I definitely see health and wellness, turning a corner, people making lifestyle changes and wanting a better life and better health for themselves and moving away from the Western medicine system. They're great for emergencies, like I mentioned, you know, emergencies, surgeries, and whatnot. But if you want to live longer and if you want to add years to your life and life to your years, definitely preventative medicine is where it's at.
Exactly. And are there any, let's say, common mineral deficiencies that you find? Like, what are like the top three that a lot of people come to you have?
It's usually magnesium, sodium, and potassium. Because especially sodium and potassium, like when a lot of my clients, I'm seeing they're stuck in fight or flight. So once you initially, when you get into a stress, the initial stress response, it will release all the sodium and potassium. Your kidneys will release them. So you'll see it very high in the tissues. And then eventually, if our bodies are supposed to adapt to stress, right? It goes through the stress, it goes down, goes to a resistance stage, and then it goes back to baseline. But when you get stuck in fight or flight, that's when your body just keeps releasing the sodium and potassium. It just burns through it, and then you're stuck in fight or flight. I'll usually see just like one milligram percent, or it's 1 parts per million of potassium in someone's tissue, and that means they're in chronic fight or flight. So those are the three, because those are the three that always gets burned through when we're stressed out and we're living in a very stressful world, right? Very high paced, very toxic world. The toxins. So the stress is just not external stress. We have to think of internal stress also. So all these toxins that we're bombarded with is causing internal stress as well. So yeah, those are the three ones that's very common. And I have a lot of women that have copper imbalance because of past birth control use or copper IUD. And even pregnancy can cause our copper to go really high. And usually, if we're very healthy, our body is able to excrete the excess copper once we give birth. But because we're so toxic, our livers are so overloaded, then the liver can't get rid of the excess copper and excess estrogen. There's a lot of women that have estrogen dominance, which is related to copper.
Yes. I remember that, I had tested it, my hormones, everything was okay, and then I tested them a couple months later, and my, copper was sky high, and my doctor's like, "What did you do?" And I'm like, "I don't know." I was online, and somebody on TikTok says those Ayurvedic copper glasses were, like, really good for drinking your water out of. That's the only thing I did different, and apparently that made it go
Yeah,
sky high.
yeah, yeah. Because copper is a double-edged mineral. It's like we need it, but not too much. It has to be a certain amount, right? And if our livers are not healthy, then it won't produce that proteins that's gonna take it to where it needs to go. And that's when the problem starts because then it can't get detox from our bodies. So either it's just floating in our bodies, causing toxicity and deficiency because it's not going where it needs to go, or it's going to get stored in your liver and your brain, and that's when the anxiety and insomnia happens. And that's why a lot of postpartum depression and anxiety, when you see that, it's usually a copper imbalance also.
So when people say that like inflammation is a good thing, you're supposed to get inflammation, and like because I'm trying to explain to people like you shouldn't be chronically inflamed. It
Yeah.
should be like, you have an injury and you're inflamed, but like they'll have like really signs of very high chronic inflammation. So like can you explain like a little bit about why inflammation is good but not chronically?
Yeah, of course. Definitely, we need, so it's how our bodies work, right? Like you said, if you have an injury, then your body will release the white blood cells, go over there and fight the bacteria or whatever that will have an inflammation. But once that's done, your body should be able to know how to pull back, and then, like then healing happens. Now, what happens when you're stuck in chronic inflammation is because, like, nutrient deficiencies, stress, toxicities that causes our body to be hyper immune, is what I'll say, right? Because your body is constantly fighting all these pathogens and all these things that doesn't belong. Then you get stuck in chronic inflammation. When your body's stuck in chronic inflammation, that's when we also start seeing all the symptoms: joint pain, right? Even you'll have gut issues, your skin will show it. So it's really about balance. Everything in our lives, in our body, organs, everything is about balance. We don't want it to be we don't want to be hyper immune or low immunity. It's like if your body is not responding to allergens, it's like there's a chart, I can't remember, but if you're overly inflamed or your immune system is on overdrive, and that's when you get the allergies, like all these chronic things. But then if your immune system is very low and weak, that's usually the trends for cancer because your body is not able to fight the cancer cells. So we really want balance in everything.
So like hyper inflammation will be like you have a lot of allergies, maybe food sensitivities, maybe
Yeah,
eczema flares, things like that.
yeah. And see the thing, so when we mentioned food allergies, we are not meant to have any food sensitivities. So, but because when everything is working at 100%, there should be no food sensitivities, there's no allergies, there's no symptoms. We're just like in perfect health. And when there's something that causes an immune response, then yeah, we'll have colds or sneezing, but that shouldn't last very long. It should just be, a brief period of time. And that just means that your body is working. So it's also not good when how like, oh, I never get sick.
Mm,
That's also not good because that means your body doesn't know it's not fighting what it's supposed to fight. And so you're probably just like, all these pathogens are just in your body, not getting like not keep it's not kept in check. And all of a sudden you'll have all these underlying infections that's not affecting you yet right now, but down the line, if you get a very stressful event, a trigger event, things will start showing up because actually your body was really weak, but you didn't know it.
exactly. Like if everything is fine in your life, you're probably not going to notice. But the second like you're not sleeping well, or there's somebody who's sick and you have to take care of them, or something goes wrong, that's when
Yeah,
everything comes up and you realize maybe you weren't taking care of yourself as much as you thought you were.
exactly. Or when you eat too much donuts.
Yes, and also
That's
like we have like a holiday season that's all
yeah.
based around junk food, and then everybody gets the cold because it's
Yeah.
cold. It's like no, it's not, because I don't get it because I don't eat that.
Yeah, exactly. It's really your body. I learned this a while back too when I would notice when sometimes there's a period of time I would be so stressed and I'm like, donut's my comfort food. and then I'll eat donuts, and all of a sudden I'll get snotty. I'm like, oh, my body doesn't like the sugar. It's causing inflammation. Now it's detoxing itself. So we want that, right? We want to have some form of immune response telling us that, hey, you're consuming something you shouldn't be consuming, but I'm also detoxing. So it's showing you that your body's working. It's kind of just like having a fever. A fever is an inflammation in your body. Your body is just doing its thing, fighting whatever got in there to get you better. So it raises the temperature so that it can kill it off. That's why saunas are so great to kill off parasites and other pathogens inside your body. The heat.
Yes, I love saunas. I do it like 3 times a week. It's the best. And you feel
Yeah.
so like energized afterwards.
Yeah.
At least I do.
You
And that
do.
and Epsom salt.
Yes. And the sauna, it's a beautiful thing about the sauna is it's like a controlled stress, and it helps your parasympathetic nervous system. Like it actually helps relaxes your body. At the same time, it releases toxins, and so yeah, you would feel energized after.
Exactly. And then you sleep so good after you do a sauna and then like a cold, quick shower. You sleep perfect.
Yeah, yeah, the most amazing thing.
So, are there any like things we can do to help reduce our toxin exposure?
Yes, we start. I know. So food and bath and body products. Anything that you buy, like I said, you have control over, right? You have control over what you take inside your home. But if we're talking about bath and body products, I would say get rid of all things that has fragrance slash parfum, or they sometimes hide it under aroma, like all these artificial fragrances, because it's a cocktail of chemicals and they don't need to tell you what it is. A lot of times it has phthalates in it, which makes it so that the scent stays longer. And it's really a big hormone disruptor. So that's the first thing that we need to, that's the first thing that I would get rid of if you can only get rid of one ingredient. So that would be in your laundry detergent, in your dryer sheets, cleaners, shampoo and conditioners, pretty much everything. Sometimes trash bags has fragrance. Oh yeah, and candles. I know it's fall, right? We want to smell the smell of fall. We don't want that.
Mm-mm.
There's natural candle companies now that can mimic the smell of pumpkin spice or whatever scent you like. Just make sure that they don't use artificial fragrances, and beeswax candles are better than the paraffin wax and the soy wax, I would say. Plus, 100% beeswax candles with no scent already smells like vanilla anyways. So you probably just only need that. But yeah, it's really, I think the fragrance is the one thing that's hardest for people because our brains have been trained to think that clean has to have a scent, right? That's why when you see in a lot of non-toxic groups, that's always like the last thing they can swap is the laundry detergent, because they say it doesn't smell clean when they use natural detergents. Like, but clean doesn't smell like anything, right? But yeah, that's, and if you think about this, if you're doing IVF, this fertility clinics doesn't allow you to wear fragrance.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that tell us? That it really disrupts hormones.
Okay, so what's one piece of advice you'd give someone who's starting their healthier lifestyle journey? Where should they start?
I would say start with making one swap at a time so it doesn't get overwhelming. Even if you do one swap a week or a month, sometimes I even say a year. Like, because everybody is different, right? We all have different budgets, we all have different situations. And always remember that your journey is like, don't compare your journey with anyone else's journey. A lot of times now, like, there's so much information and we get they're getting health anxiety over swapping, over like trying to get healthy because there's so much information. First, they say this thing is good, now it's bad. All these things. My advice for that really is to just, know that you can't live in a bubble. You can't be 100% toxic free. Just start with one, slowly swap out other things, and don't be scared of the sun, the sun and dirt. Don't be scared of dirt. Nature is the most healing thing you can expose yourself to. Like if you don't want to do any testing, you don't want to, start drastic changes, just add in sunlight exposure and touching your feet on the bare dirt, then you're going to be, starting there.
So tell us a little bit about your ultimate energy checklist freebie.
Yeah. So I made it into a stackable habits style checklist. So you'll start off with one thing to change and then you stack it up, because in the beginning when I said everyone has a hard time changing habits. And so to me, I find habit stacking is a great way to, start creating the change and start the movement for new habits.
And where can everybody find you online? What social media platforms are you most active in?
I'm most active in, I would say, I post a lot on Instagram because the reels are easier to put captions in, but it's automatically posted to my Facebook. And I also love hanging out in Facebook groups where I can share, little insights here and there, have different angles for anyone looking for health advice or, toxic free lifestyle swaps and all that stuff. And my website is kindheartlifestyle.com.
Okay, awesome. So I'm going to put all of that in the show notes so everybody can go and check you out. Is there anything else you'd like to leave the audience with before we go?
Yes. Your mindset is very important in healing. So stop thinking that your body is broken, because if you keep telling your body that, then it will stay broken. So my favorite mantra is each and every day my body is getting better, or each and every day I'm getting better and better. I think it's a beautiful mantra, so that you're telling yourselves, right, that yeah, we're getting better and better each and every day, even though our improvements are very tiny. We also celebrate that, because any small win is a win, and our health journey is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So give yourself grace, give yourself time, and your body will heal.
Awesome. So thank you so much, Fatima, for being with us today. And we'll see you guys next time.
Start the revolution, let the truth begin. Wake up, defeating lies. Control the media's got you hypnotized. Trust authority, they'll take your soul. Break the chains, find your own control.